So today I wanted to show you a technique that I have been playing with lately where I make Sumi Ink Markers, which this is Sumi Ink. I discovered it when I took a drawing class, and this was one of the things that we used for our final project, and I just loved like the thick black lines that it gave me, and so I bought a bottle of it. And usually I would paint with a brush, but I was experimenting. I found some YouTube videos about making graffiti markers, and they all use like weird ingredients like shoe polish and weird chemicals, and so I was like, what could I use that I already have that might do a similar effect? And I thought of the Sumi Ink, and I'm very happy to report that it worked. So this is my Sumi Ink marker. I know it looks like a Sharpie, but it's not, and it gives me a great thick and I have discovered that really it writes on everything I've tried it on so far. Really, it's one of the few things I have that will actually work on water-soluble oil pastels, because they like to gum up markers pretty quickly, but this works on those. And the cool thing too, I don't know if you can see it in the video, but it's a little bit on the shiny side, and it stays on the shiny side whenever it dries. Sometimes the color washes out a little bit like that, but usually I'll just go over it again, and then it'll be nice and thick and bold the way that I would like it to be. So let me show you a couple things that I made with the marker. Okay, this page has a background of, these are water-soluble oil pastels, and this is a magazine image. I drew on top of the magazine image with the Sumi Ink marker that I made, which is where all the lines in this come from. And then these bold, like sunbursts here, also made with the Sumi Ink, same with the outline. So that's one thing that I made with them. The next thing, I seem to have lost. Here we go. This was my sample page that I made when I first did it to see if it was actually working, and I wrote this whole page with it, so I was pretty happy about that. And even here, it's dry. I don't know if you can tell, but it still looks wet, so I like that. And I did this, and the background for this was testing out my do-it-yourself Copic system, and I just wrote on top of it to test. And then the last thing I have, which you'll see this in a prompt coming up, I outlined this guy using the Sumi marker and all the text on here, and the background was twinkling H2Os, so it wrote on those just fine. So now I'm going to show you how I made the marker. Alright, the first thing that you're going to need are old Sharpie markers, which if you have ever done the tutorial for making your own alcohol ink using Sharpie markers, using the guts left over from that is a great way to do it, as long as you pull them apart carefully, which I'm going to show you how to do that. So you need old Sharpies. Totally doesn't matter if they're dried out. These are actually generic Stanian brand. Whatever you have will work. Then you need some felt, and this is fancy felt, which I buy from the Etsy seller Giant Dwarf. I'm not really sure. I don't think it's 100% wool. I think it's like an eco felt. So what I would just do is experiment. If you're not sure if it's going to work, dip it in a little bit of whatever ink you're trying and see if it's going to soak it up, because this is going to serve as a wick for the marker. So you need that. You will need pliers. I usually like to get, these pliers have teeth on the inside. You definitely can't see that. And then these cutters, just in case. You may or may not actually need those. You will need rubbing alcohol, something to put the alcohol in. I am recycling a cat food can here. That's just so I can throw it away without having to wash anything. And then we're going to use Sumi Ink, which I bought this at Jerry's Artarama. A big bottle like this, which is a ginormous bottle, I think it is 12 ounces. This was about $12, but they have smaller bottles that are like $4, so you can definitely buy a smaller bottle and just experiment. You really don't need very much. The first thing you want to do is take apart the old markers. I just use the pliers to gently pull this out. You want to be careful with it because that's going to be the nib for your new marker, so you don't want to mess it up. So then the next step is to get these soaking in a little rubbing alcohol. This is just going to pull out any extra color. This is really more important if you're switching colors of ink. Since I'm sticking pretty much the same, I'm not super worried about how long they're going to be soaking in here, just a little bit. You can see it's already coloring. And you can actually use the ink that results from this to make a spray ink, which I'll show you that actually, why not. I put more than I needed, but since I knew I was going to make a spray ink, I decided to add extra. You're just going to let that soak. And since we are going to turn this into a spray ink, definitely if you're using a can, make sure it's very clean, which I did. The next step, again, you want to be kind of careful about this because you need to use this. In fact, it might be easier to just, So what I did was I just kind of held this and bent it. Of course, this one doesn't want to work as well. There we go. You'll feel it start to give. Okay, so if you haven't seen the video on how to make your own alcohol ink, I'm going to show you real quick how it works. This is just an old jar. I use these jars exclusively for the alcohol ink. You're going to take this guy. This probably would work better with a pair of scissors, but yeah, definitely I need scissors. You want to cut this apart. This is going to be messy on your hands, but it'll wash off eventually. Ah, so gross. Okay. This is way juicier than I expected. All over my hands. Do the same thing on both. In fact, it might be easier to... You don't really have to cut it the whole way down, just enough so that the alcohol is going to get at the guts. And then you're just going to put, and I think it's about 1 ounce, like 1 ounce of rubbing alcohol per marker. I could probably put, I'm running out of alcohol, but that's okay, I'll get more. And then you would just let this, I usually let it soak for at least a day before I do anything with it. And that will be your new spray ink, which you can play with later. Okay, so before we go any further, I'm going to clean my scissors. One thing that I have discovered, which is important to remember if you're using spray inks, soap and water is not going to clean it up. This is important if you work with kids like I do and it gets all over the table. Soap and water won't work, but rubbing alcohol will get it right up. So use alcohol to clean up alcohol-based products. Okay, so the next thing that you want to do is make the new wick for your marker, which you want to make sure, because it's going to go up in here, and you want to make sure that it goes down into the body too. So that's probably a little longer than I need it to be. You could just estimate. I don't know that it really matters. I guess I should have kept it to the same length as that, but whatever. And you're just going to roll this up. Just try to roll it as tightly as you can, just because you need to be able to push it into the cap. Alright. Now you're going to take this and you're going to push it into here. This might actually be too big. If you twist it, there we go. If you twist it while you are pushing it in, that's going to make it work a lot better. I think that's up there far enough. Now we get to the part that's messy. or potentially messy, I should say. You don't want to fill it completely full, otherwise it's going to explode. So put it about to there, like a little over halfway, the best that you can tell. Oh, and it's really easy to overfill it like I just did, but that's okay, because what you can do if you do overfill it is carefully try to get this end tight. It's going to wick up the ink pretty quickly, so just go slowly and let it wick up some of that ink before you start pushing it the whole way down. But this is why I forgot to mention that. Put the towel on the workshop so that if you do have a spill on your work surface, if you do have a spill, then it's not disastrous because you've already planned for that. It is definitely a potentially messy. I haven't really made much of a mess, but it could happen, definitely. Same thing, twist as you push it in. I'm going kind of slowly so I don't have any ink spilling. And when you get to the point that I just push it. There you go. It doesn't have to be perfect because you're actually going to take this apart one more time. So you're going to let that sit for a while. What's going to happen is that the felt is going to start to wick up the ink. In fact, you could turn it and help it along. And so this is the one we did earlier, and it's been sitting for maybe 20 minutes. I'm going to gently pull it apart, and as you pull it, twist it again to get it out. And you'll see that here it's still, so the ink has wicked up in, but it's still not the whole way, so what we're going to do is add more. You might have to do this 3 times. It really just depends on your material and how much it is soaking up the ink. Okay. Definitely overfilled at that time. Here's where it gets a little messy. I guess you could drop in ink from the top, but that might take a while too. This will wash right off of your hands. Okay, so the next step is to fish the wick out of here. That's my blue one. You could go wash this further if you really wanted to, but I don't. So this one, I took it out and I dried it a little bit. I think this is going to work better. Alright, perfect. And I can already feel that the color is starting to come out of there. It takes a while for it to start to come through. But you'll see that it's going to start to improve in color. There we go, that's good. And just to show you, this is the nib. So it's definitely not coming from the nib that was soaking in the alcohol. It still needs a little bit more time. This is just telling me that the ink is not quite coming through the whole way. It'll do better if you cap it and just leave it overnight and let it soak, and then you can check it to see that there's enough. If the felt is completely wicked of ink and there's none left down here, add more. And this will be like, you could, I don't know, you could continue to refill this down the line. So that is ready. I hope that this has given you some inspiration to play a little bit, and I'd like to see what you come up with. Oh, you know what, before before I go, I did put a little of this solution that we are soaking. It's not going to be as intense as the color will be tomorrow, but I put a little bit in a water bottle. And I figure we'll see how this works. I'm just going to spray right over this. So it's kind of like a very light color. It'll get more intense. The more of the guts that you soak in there, the more intense the color will get, but after like 24 hours it'll get pretty intense. So let's do a test with, I made this stencil yesterday, so we'll try it out with this spray. Not bad. It's really light, really subtle, but I think you can see the shape of the face. No. Okay. That's all. Have fun.